Today's video is brought to you by Sony. Face the mugs. How about this? Will this make anyone uncomfortable?
Oh, makes me uncomfortable.
This is how people drink. Handle away. Handle away.
Okay, you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Hey, brother!
And welcome everyone to our Raya and the Last Dragon review.
This will be a spoiler review for the movie, but before we dive on into the spoilers, we're first going to address the topic of whether or not it is worth renting/purchasing this movie with premiere access on Disney+. So if you haven't watched it yet and you're wondering whether or not to watch it, we will answer that before we get into spoilers.
Spoilers, it is.
Hey, brother!
Guys, before we dive on into the review, we need to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Sony, and specifically their HD noise-canceling headphones, the WH-1000XM4s. Ben and I both have a pair of these, and the noise canceling is literally unreal. Even if you've only been wearing them for like 10-15 minutes, when you take them off, the air conditioner suddenly sounds like a freaking subwoofer. Seriously, this is what it's like. Ready? On, off, on, off, on. You get it. It makes you wonder, how did I get anything done before? Was it always this loud in here? The HD noise canceling processor, Bluetooth audio, and dual noise sensor are all, first of all, big words, but also technology that lets you listen without distractions. Basically, it just listens to the sounds around you and makes sure you have that perfect noise cancellation effect. And the great thing is, these things paired up with my devices in no time flat, like there was nothing to it. But if you want to take control one step further, there is the Headphones Connect app, which allows you to further tailor your listening experience. After wearing them for just a few days, I can tell you for sure, this is the kind of product where like, I will never go back. Seriously, this is not like a copy point they're making us read. I cannot tell you how much easier it is to focus with these things on. Like, genuinely more productive. Again, these are the Sony HD noise canceling WH-1000XM4s. If you would like to check them out for yourself, there is a link in the description down below. Okay, Ben, so actually, sorry, I said spoilers, it is worth watching. I don't actually know what you thought. I haven't talked to you about the movie at all.
As is the custom.
Do you agree?
I don't.
You don't?
I do not agree.
Okay.
I think that this is a movie that is good, but should have been amazing. That was ultimately, like, if you want my 10-second takeaway from the movie, I think that thematically, it's a spectacular theme, but I think that every single impactful moment of the entire movie flatlines.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say this to your point is that I was not left I wasn't thinking about the movie a ton the next day. Like, I watched it, I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to people personally, but I wasn't like, I watched it Saturday night and like Sunday, I was like, I haven't really thought about it almost at all. Like, that is sort of like left feeling flat. And then I was like, okay, for work, I should think about it. And when I was reflecting more on it, I began to like certain elements of it more, like as I started asking myself certain questions about the movie.
Right, okay, so there's a lot of like really, and I would agree with that, where I watched it last night, Sunday, coming into Monday morning, and the same thing, like when I was like showering and getting ready this morning, I was still thinking about WandaVision from Friday.
Well, who's not?
Right?
Yeah.
So, interesting topic to bring up though, WandaVision, as it pertains to Raya, is that as what we do here on this channel is very frequently going through clip by clip, really heavily trying to like make predictions and write theories and, you know, whatever. For WandaVision, we did that in spades. Like, we went through the whole show, every single frame, episode by episode, peeling it apart.
Yeah, I could not stop thinking about WandaVision. Like, It was infiltrating my dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here at our office, we've had tons of discussions about like, does all the theorizing that we put into it, like, does it affect our ability to ultimately enjoy the outcome if it is different from what we predicted, where it's like, oh, it's got to be, you know, this, that, the other. And it ends up not being this, that, the other, but it ends up being something that fits thematically with the show. So there's sort of like that question topic that I know that we're going to continue to address more in the future. But with Raya, this was not the case.
Not the case. Like, so, we went in pretty cold.
Like, and it was a movie that I was excited about. I just, like, the title, the idea, dragons, I'm like, yes, on board. I'm in. I'm excited, looking forward to it. And so mostly I was coming into it with basically no predictions at all. Like, I wasn't like, oh, this is gonna happen, or I bet this is that, or you know, the sword's important, or anything like that.
Yeah, mostly I was like, Awkwafina's gonna be funny.
Yes.
That was true.
Awkwafina nailed it.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting because I basically came into it with barely any expectations at all. And what I would say is that, like, the theme of this movie is this, like, really big idea of sort of like building bridges between two different ideas and like meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
And like this trust amongst one another and like sort of just coming together as a whole instead of operating as a bunch of separate pieces.
Basically.
Which is an idea that I love. Like, yeah. 100%. Like, that is probably the biggest thing that makes me feel like that really brought me even to the point where I was like, this is a good movie. Right. Because I really, really, really liked the themes of it, and I could get behind like exactly the message that it's trying to send. I just wasn't emotionally invested really in just about anything.
In any particular character.
Character, the pacing of the movie is very aggressive. It watches like playing a video game.
It did very much in the like, okay, first we need to go to this town, collect this item. And then we'll go to this town and there will be obstacles, but we'll get this item. Then we have to go to this town and there will be obstacles, but we'll get this item.
Right, and you're kind of like picking up friends along the way who are becoming allies, and there's all of that. Yeah. So I would say up until this point, without really diving into spoilers, like that is like where I landed with it.
I agree. The messaging I really, really liked, and that you know, it's all about like working together and seeing other points of view, and specifically like towards the end, forgiveness was like a huge one.
Yep.
And I really liked that. And what I thought about a lot though was two main things. Is that one, Raya is a very untraditional like Disney princess, quote unquote.
Sure.
Like most Disney princesses are like very bubbly, very optimistic, very like, let's get it done. Raya is like the complete opposite. She is like expecting a fight everywhere. She is mistrustful of people, and she's like pretty pessimistic overall.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
and even like her key mission, like she's not even out there to save the world.
Yeah.
Like she is out there to try to restore all the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, for selfish reasons, effectively.
I mean, she wants her,
she wants her father back. Yeah. And so you're exactly right. Like, I do think that, especially even if you were to compare her with like Moana, which was maybe like another similar-ish type of character.
I would say, yes, for sure. There was heavy Moana vibes. I wrote down the three other franchises that was like, I feel like all these things, these other three things I love so much. And I was like, all of these things are like coming together, and as a result, this should be amazing, and it's falling a little flat of each of them, but they are Moana, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Indiana Jones.
I am shocked that you don't have Black Panther in there.
Oh, really?
Black Panther, like that's exactly the premise of how all those tribes sort of like go out and become each of their own.
You're right.
And then you've got like especially the one.
Yeah, like there was like Wakanda that was all five, and then they.
Right.
Yeah. Then you have the one that went off.
But I would throw that onto your list then.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that one also.
You're right. It's exactly there. I guess to me that was much more like the Avatar vibe. Like you have the Fang tribe, who's like very Fire Nation. They're like militaristic and modern and way ahead of the other tribes. And they're very self-centered and selfish. And then you've got everyone else. And like even like all the villages remind you of like Aang and friends, all the villages they visit along the way.
I could see that.
And down to the fact that each of those other tribes is very heavily inspired by specific Asian cultures.
Oh, sure.
And like that's obviously at play. Like that was the thing is like there was obviously so much thought and care going into each like setting and character and like environment.
Yes.
Like I could really appreciate everything that was happening. It was just like there was a little something missing, what it felt like.
Well, and I would say it was time spent anywhere. Like, and again, like I go back to this idea of like pacing. So like you start this movie with Raya, who is already basically like combat ready, like as a child. Like you're seeing her like on her final test of becoming a guardian of the Dragonstone.
The Dragon Gem.
Dragon Gem.
Yeah, she's in full Legend of Korra wear. She's fighting the Blue Spirit. Basically, more Avatar stuff.
Yes,
she's going through the legend of the Temple of the Power Stone of Doom or whatever.
Right. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So, but like, so you see her basically on like the final, like her graduation day. And it seems like that same day is the day that her dad has arranged for a bunch of people to come to the village to like extend a meal and like, let's have that olive branch put out there. Like, let's come together.
Right.
And so like,
Kumandra.
Yes. Like he's like a very like idealist, like he's like looking at it like we can do this, like we can come together. Almost to the point where it seems like maybe he, at the point where he's coming at it from, is like maybe a little bit like ignorant to like how unlikely that outcome is.
Sure.
Like he's almost a blind optimist.
Well, so because the opening narration sets up the world as at once upon a time everyone was united as Kumandra, and then at some point the Droon show up.
Yes.
And everyone kind of splits. And then these 5 dragons come together, Sisu being the one everyone remembers, and they make the Dragon Gem, and that puts the Droon at bay.
Right.
But then everyone blames the Heart Tribe, or associates the Heart Tribe's success with having the Dragon Gem.
Right.
As opposed to, like, what the actual reason for their success is probably more likely the dad, who is like the king or chief of the tribe or whatever.
Right. Well, she's a princess.
She's the princess, so I guess king makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah. They use the word princess, so I'm going to go with king. So he's the king of the Heart Tribe. I would say the reason for their success is his optimism.
Sure.
And like his like general positivity, but none of the other tribes think of that. They're like, Heart has the Dragon Gem, and that's why they're doing well. We need the Dragon Gem. They're not sharing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get like, it becomes very, very, very snappy very quickly. So you have everybody show up and they're like, let's go have a meal. So they're sitting there and you see Namari having like, this exchange with Raya, and it's really adorable. And it's sort of like that sentiment I think that we all really love, which is that like there's a purity to children. And it's like, they don't see all these political lines drawn in the sand that they're supposed to be navigating. It's like, we're both young kids and we can get along because we're going through the same things in life.
Right. Isn't it silly? Everyone's against each other.
Right.
I like you.
Like we could be BFFs. And you have this is like one of those moments I'll build up to, but she gives her the necklace, the pendant, the dragon of
Sisu.
And basically from there it's like, hey, let me go show you the thing. And then it's like, hey, we're here, alert everybody else. Everybody else shows up, it gets smashed, and then like the plot just starts immediately 90 miles an hour.
The second that gem is broken, the Droon show up. They're like, we're here, we're back, hey, great news.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's like a really interesting way to describe this discord amongst people, is that like the Droon is fueled by that.
Yeah, I looked it up because I couldn't remember it exactly. It said they come from human malice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the type of thing where, yes, it is always present, and like whether or not it is actively like overcoming the people is really like the visual metaphor that I think is at play.
Right.
Is sort of like, clearly the more of them represents the greater amount of malice amongst the people.
Right.
And because it is now overtaking everybody, it means that it's reached such a point that is what it would represent in the real world.
Right.
Like take this imaginary floating, it almost reminded me of like the cloud from Lost a little bit, like the black smoke.
Yeah, the black smoke cloud.
Like very like whippy and whatever. Or even a little bit the other one was from Fantastic Beasts, the Obscurus.
Yes, that is exactly what it was looking like, was the Obscurus. I could not quite place that. I was like, this cloud looks so familiar. Yes, it looks exactly like an Obscurus.
So to take that out of play, I think that it still sort of works. Like even if you don't have this parasitic force that's moving through the villages and everything, you would still have a level of malice that would be such that would be causing civilization to effectively fall apart.
Right. So do you think that like that's the commentary that is like in the real world, like the Droon are like the physical representation of people's like negativity against each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly the way that I took it, at least.
Well, then I'm glad you said that, because the other thing that I was reflecting on yesterday was that like once Sisu, the dragon, who's played by Awkwafina, is reborn or whatever, like she immediately like feels like out of place a little bit. Like in terms
like
of,
at the shipwreck?
Yeah, like at the shipwreck.
Okay.
Yeah, like when she comes back and Raya, I don't know, reanimates her or whatever. She immediately just feels like way different than all the other characters you've been exposed to so far. Like she is upbeat and positive and cracking jokes and stuff. And I think a little bit of it is that she feels like way more like 2021 modern day like humor.
Have you ever done like a group project, but there's like that one kid who didn't pitch in as much, but still ended up with the same grade?
Sure. Like she's like breaking like the, like a little bit breaking the fourth wall, and like you're making sort of like jokes that people in this, from this world are not capable of making because it's a style that they wouldn't have been exposed to or something.
Yes. I absolutely had that same feeling where it's like, it reminded me actually a little bit of Genie showing up in Aladdin.
It's exactly what it felt like. Yes, exactly. Very similar vibes. She even like holds her up and it's like, oh, what do I call you? You know.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Like that exact moment happens in Aladdin.
Yeah. It has so many inspirations for this movie. But anyway, I was like wondering the whole thing was like, so I think part of that, like the way in which Awkwafina's humor works, like makes her feel a little bit like out of place in time there. But at the same time, I was like, why does Sisu's character feel so out of place? It's like, what is it about her character? And it's like, the answer is that Sisu is like eternally optimistic and like positive, and her solution to everything is like, let's get him a gift. And you know, she just like is very trusting, and just like it to me was interesting that like this character feels unrealistic because they're positive. And I was like, boy, I don't like that sentence.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
I was like,
so
as soon as I hit that sentence, I was like, oh, that's what they're trying to say. Like that's the commentary, I think, is that like everyone here in the real world, like, I don't know. To me, it went to like a very social media place. Like the world we live in is like very toxic at times, and it's like to the point where a character that's just genuinely nice and happy and go lucky and positive felt unrealistic, when it's like, that should not be true. Right.
Yeah, it should not be the case that you see a character that's positive and be like, unlikely.
Yeah.
Like, take it down a skew.
Like, okay, dragon.
Right. No, that's a really, really good point. And so yeah, I think that Sisu's character is super well executed. I think Awkwafina does a really great job, and even like the human version of Sisu, I thought it reminded me, it was almost like a caricature of.
Oh, it looked exactly like her.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so perfect.
Well done.
But like that was one of those things that I actually had written down, because you had mentioned like the giving of gifts thing.
Yeah.
That was like, it almost felt like this like established like thing that it was almost supposed to be, like where Sisu was like so very opposite of Raya, where it was like Raya's like, no, I had a bad experience with gifts one time, so I don't do gifts.
Right.
And it was like, well, like, is that, well, like it felt like that is what they chose to sort of be this like Raya had this experience with that pendant early on, that with Namari, where I felt like every single time Sisu was bringing up the idea of giving it gifts, it was supposed to almost be like salt in the wound for Raya.
A little bit.
But like it was just something I was like, I don't really get it.
You know, yeah, I agree. And to me, the reason it didn't ring true was because like Raya's associating all this gift giving with the pendant, and I'm like, to me, the pendant didn't even seem like a real gift. It was like the pendant was just part of the trick. Like,
right.
Like, it was just like that wasn't a gift. All of it was a trick. It was all just deceit. Why are you counting that as a gift?
Right. Like, and it wasn't even like you had it for like years and years and it was the special memento and then eventually the betrayal came or something like that.
Right,
Like,
yes, that would have been one thing. Like if they exchange it with friends and like 5 years later, it's like, oh, we're such good pals and buds. We've been on so many adventures, and then she turned on her. Like, that would have been a little more impactful. That again,
I keep going back to pacing, but I feel like again, that's almost what you needed was like a meeting of Raya and Namaari as like little children, maybe where the gift does happen. And then like when you see them again as these like teenagers, like maybe Raya's wearing it and it's sort of like, oh, like the pendant, like of course.
Right.
You know, like they commemorate that moment or whatever. And then it becomes like a greater mark of the betrayal instead of just being like you're saying.
Yeah, because you're right, like the foundation to their friendship is like 30 minutes long.
Right.
And it's obviously been a ruse the entire time on Namaari's part.
Right.
Like none of it was real for her.
Yes.
You know,
yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then really like you kind of just jump right into this story and like the process of getting the first piece of the gem is from the sort of like booby-trapped tree where the elder had like clearly like booby-trapped it so aggressively that she was actually left caught inside of the space and just died there.
Yeah.
And so
Indiana Jones.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The very like the bag on the whatever. So right out of the gate, you kind of go and get like this first one, and then Boone, who is like the shrimp boat captain, like immediately becomes a part of the crew. Who Boone the whole time I kept thinking
I know exactly what you're gonna say
was the little boy from Moana. He was like doing like the dance to like impress her or whatever.
They were like, let's make that character a full character.
Yes, people loved him, so we'll just literally like put him into a movie as a main character.
Yeah. I liked Boone, but the problem I had with Boone's character, which is totally not like plot relevant or anything, is like, where did he keep getting all the shrimp?
Yes!
Like every time they came back to the boat, he's like, I got more. And I'm like, that's a tiny boat, man. Why do you have, there's no way you have that much shrimp. You seemed hard up for Jade at the beginning.
Right.
Are you fishing while Rye is off doing her thing? Like,
yeah,
anyway,
right. And then
not a big deal.
Non-propelled boat.
Yeah, and your non-propelled boat.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It did seem like they had just a sheer surplus of goods.
Yeah.
For that. And on that note, so I think you go from Boone to Noi, who is like the little baby with like the three.
Let me tell you, Noi is maybe my least favorite part of the whole movie.
Yes.
Little baby.
Yes. Like it is like such a weirdly OP child who is actually as like by the end of the movie, you see Noi reunited with her parents, and it's like it's just an infant.
Right.
That like should not be able to like scale castle
walls.
Like
it's so weird because like you're already watching like, you know, a fantasy movie where dragons exist and like special powers exist. But like my suspension of disbelief does not extend to martial arts con baby, you know, and like with highly trained monkey friends.
Yeah.
You know, like it just like if I could have gotten on board with little baby is in on pretending to cry because some other older character is
pulling the strings
and is like, you cry, we'll lure them in. Like
that's very Zootopia because you have like the little like they're getting like the elephant pop, you know, or whatever, and you've got the little and it's like a little creature that is dressed up like an elephant, but it's really just like an adult creature or whatever.
Right. It's just like infants can't do that.
Right.
And it's like that was just it seems silly. I don't know why that couldn't have just been like a little girl.
I think really the setup for that was moving on to Tong, who was voiced by Benedict Wong, which I could not place the entire time.
Yeah, once you looked it up.
It was like, oh, yes, of course. So I thought that was amazing. That made me really happy. Benedict Wong is in Doctor Strange.
As Wong.
As Wong.
Yeah.
I have his name right?
Tong, yes.
Yeah, okay, Tong. Okay.
Wong is Tong.
Wong is Tong.
Yeah.
So you get Tong into the fold, and like his story, again, I think is like one that's like supposed to like tug on your heartstrings a little bit. And because you go in and you kind of find out like he's the last man standing from his whole tribe.
Well, first you learn his like baby has been taken, but then you learn he's the last one of his whole tribe.
Right, which is like I think it's like a moment that this is like where I think that it was too quick, because like I didn't feel attached enough to the character. And so for me, I jumped to the movie Klaus, like the Netflix movie about like sort of the origin story of Christmas, a la like the post service and all that.
Yeah.
And you have Klaus, who's kind of like out in the woods, and he's like this big, you know, like lumberjack type of guy. And he like seems like big and menacing and carries an axe and all this stuff. But ultimately what you find out is that he failed at having a family. Like I'm like choking up like talking about it, because it's like that's how much like it hits me.
Right.
But like when you find out like his origin story, like I legitimately cry every single time I watch it. Like it is so sad, and it's like so well established. And so I would say the at best what was happening is that I was reminiscing that scene from a different movie and remembering that movie scene being exposed to this like family that didn't happen, or you know had this like heartbreak. Right. That is what choked me up more than the actual scene that was being played before me. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I thought was not helping Tong's case is that effectively, because what tribe was Tong from? I had to write it all down. Spine. Is that if he's the last member left of all of Spine, it just seems weird to me that no one knows that.
Oh, sure.
And that also Spine was apparently just this one barricaded village.
Right.
Like, they didn't seem very big.
No, not so much.
Like, I don't know. It didn't seem realistic that an entire, I don't know, country within these countries could have been that small.
Right.
Which was a little weird. Like, was that just one village, or maybe they should have been like, I don't think there's any Spine left. Like, they were the first to fall or something.
Right.
But on that note, then I guess Tail, which was the first one, they were pretty much just completely gone too, except for like scattered people out in the desert.
Well, like Boone specifically says that he doesn't leave the ship.
Yeah.
Because he's so afraid of, you know, being attacked.
Yeah, by the Droon.
So yeah, I do think that you're probably talking about like civilizations that are falling. Talon seems to be pretty bustling still. That's where Noi the baby comes from.
Yeah, because they were on the water.
Right, because they were on the water. So that helps them. And then of course Raya is from Heart. And then finally the last piece of the puzzle is ultimately ends up being Namari, who is from Fang, which it does seem like there's sort of like a throwaway comment that you hear from I think her name was Verana.
That's her mom.
The mother, yes. There's a throwaway line where they've basically built like an island civilization out, so they're like fully protected by water.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a pretty well established place, and like people are happy and running about.
Much more like modern and militaristic and
yes, yeah, like they have an army.
Yeah.
That they can like mobilize.
Right.
You get to their civilization and they're talking about like we need to expand. Like it almost sounds like they're having like a possible like overcrowding issue, and what they've effectively run into is we can't make the island any bigger.
Right.
You know, like the island is as big as the island is. Like the only thing we could do is move to land, where we would then be at the mercy of the Droon again.
Right.
So that again, like I think you've got another problem that maybe could have been like a little bit more brought centerfold, which would have been this idea of like, we need more space. Like we can't go anywhere else. Like this civilization works, but we are like limited by this island.
Well, all of this is, you're right. If it must have been a throwaway line, because none of that was even apparent to me.
Right.
And like, to me, one of the problems with what like the narrative of the movie was Fang's position, basically, that everything is so clearly their fault. Like, they're the ones who initially broke the Dragon Gem and brought the Droon back.
Right.
And at the end, they're like closing in on them from every angle. And they're like, what do we do? What do we do? It's like, I don't know. Namari is the one who like shoots Sisu with the arrow. And it just felt like, obviously bringing the whole orb back together was the answer. Like, you've seen the dragon at this point.
Right.
It was like, your position to not help everyone is not believable.
Right.
You know, hey guys, the threat is here. You saw the threat come back. You were physically there and were the cause of it. And the solution, there's literally a dragon now.
Yes.
Your daughter has seen it.
And I think you're right. Like, I think that's what you have to take away. Is like you have to have Namari be trusting Raya when she would have basically like a lifelong's rivalry's worth of reasons not to, you know, where that's what it comes down to. But I mean, the dragon is the evidence. Our camera turned off. We're gonna pick right back up, but if there's like a blip, that's why. Sisu dying is another one of these examples to me of something like that just did not feel as emotional as I feel like it was supposed to.
Yeah, I agree. One, because like, at no point did I feel like, oh no, Cisu's done forever.
Right. You know?
Yes,
I know. Well, yeah, right. But I feel like you should have been, at least within the context of the movie, it should have been the case. Because I'm pretty sure Sisu actually dies in that moment.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. I think she is dead.
It should have been, like, I did not feel the same way about that as I did, like, when Bing Bong disappears.
Right, or like Olaf dissipates or something.
Right, where you're like, no, it can't be. And like, I mean, Olaf comes back, but Bing Bong doesn't.
All three of those characters serve very similar purposes. Like, they are the super positive force.
Right. And, yes.
You know.
Inside of the whatever story that they're revolving around. Where you've got Joy, who is struggling with maintaining her joy. You've got Anna, who is struggling with maintaining everything.
Yep.
And then you've got Raya, who pretty much from the beginning was kind of pessimistic anyway.
A little bit.
So, but like with that, like that situation is just weird to me because it's, I don't know, like you've got Namari who shows up holding the crossbow for some reason, like despite the fact that, yeah, like we said, the dragon is there.
Yeah.
Like there is proof that she should be contributing to this cause because like clearly a dragon is back.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of like a weird moment where it's like, it's kind of like no one's fault. It's kind of everybody's fault where you've got Raya who uses her super fancy sword to like whip the crossbow fires, shoots Sisu.
Oh no.
And it's like, whose fault is it? Like everyone's, no one's. Like, I don't know if that was like maybe something that was like meant to be left ambiguous because if Namari just straight up shoots Sisu, that makes her like irredeemable.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because me and Beth talked about this as we were watching it, like what like, because it looks like she's on the cusp of pulling the trigger, and it's like I don't think she was gonna shoot Sisu. I think she was aiming at Raya, but then because Raya intervenes, she ends up shooting Sisu. But like you were still on the trigger. Yeah, it doesn't seem like you should have pulled the crossbow at all.
Right. Yeah, the whole scene felt a little bit disjointed. But then even after that, you have a scene where Raya and Namari just go into like full-blown battle mode with each other.
Oh yeah, well so yeah, Sisu dies, and then apparently that makes all of the, like apparently she was keeping all of the water in the world, I guess, because all the water just dissipates.
Yeah.
So suddenly the Droon is able to just like straight up invade Fang, and what Raya does is hunt down Namari and be like, we're fighting.
Which is so random.
It is like, same thing. Me and Beth literally looked at her like, why are they fighting each other right now? Like, I don't, the Droon are all around. Everyone is at stake. What are you doing?
Right.
This fight doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I don't know, it's so odd. It's like, how can the world literally, I mean, as literally be on fire as it could possibly be, and you guys are in there dueling it out as rivals? Like, this is not really related, and I don't think that Raya pulled from it at all, but the TV show that I'm currently watching is called Cobra Kai.
Okay.
Which is like the Karate Kid, but the main characters are grown up and adults, and they run like rival dojos. And the whole idea is that like they are constantly, like karate is the answer to everything.
Yeah.
It's like they're constantly
Got a
getting
problem,
in fights.
punch it.
Right, yes. And it's like, should we fight? No! Do not fight. Are we gonna fight? Most definitely we are, because that's what moves the plot forward.
Right. Got to make bad decisions because that's what makes it interesting.
Right. So that's exactly what I was feeling about Raya, where it was like, why are they fighting?
Okay, so actually the way we're talking about it, it's reminding me a lot of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Which I feel like we're pulling from so many different things for this movie.
We are.
But okay, so what everyone talked about in Game of Thrones is like, you know, like, oh, all these people are fighting about who's going to be on the Iron Throne, but the White Walkers are right there, so maybe you should stop fighting each other because it's not going to matter.
Right. It's like, guys, there's a bigger problem.
Right, and so
it's over there.
It's over there. Like, this is, like, that's the Droon right there. But so the big thing everyone said about Game of Thrones was that the White Walkers were like an allegory for climate change or something.
Sure.
Like we're all sitting here arguing about whether or not, all these minor problems. And it's like, it doesn't matter. This is going to defeat everyone.
Right.
So,
right.
Stop. Excuse me. So as we're talking about it, I'm wondering if like, this is a very similar, like maybe this is part of the messaging of like the toxic internet social media environment we live in, that like, hey, stop yelling at each other. There are bigger problems. Like, right? Like you're watching the movie like, this fight doesn't make sense. And the movie's yelling back like, exactly, shut up.
Right, like, yeah, stop fighting with each other. Like, there are bigger problems.
Yeah.
Like, come together. That is how we solve the things.
Exactly.
And yeah, so that's what I love about the movie, is the theme.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is...
that realization minorly blew my mind in the moment.
It's like,
I see what they're saying.
I get it now. I get it. It's frustrating to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. The movie's like, oh, is it frustrating? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. That makes complete sense. But so anyway, so like you see that though, because then like the answer to everything apparently is basically everybody coming together. So you have a huge reflection of what was the original scene. And what I kept trying to figure out is whether or not each of Sisu's siblings was supposed to represent one of the like nations, so to speak.
Right, because there's like 5 dragons and there's 5 countries or whatever, tribes.
Right, and basically what you have in the beginning is 4 of the dragons coming together, putting all their powers and creating the gem to begin with, and then sending it off with Sisu.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the 5 of them together is what can solve the problem. And then in the end, you have effectively the exact same situation happening where you, like, Raya's gone through, she's not even on purpose, but inadvertently collected a member from each of these societies. And by having them all come together and place their piece of the stone or the gem in like one place, like that is ultimately the solution.
Right. So then let's see. Do the powers match up? Is that what you're wondering?
I don't know. But what are the powers? So you have rain, shape shifting, fog,
and glowing.
Good power.
And glowing.
Everybody,
which
highly underrated.
By the way, speaking of underrated, like there's this sort of running joke that Sisu's power is like, I'm a really good swimmer.
Yeah.
And it was like, I kept thinking like, oh yeah, see, they even showed you she's a good swimmer. But I kept thinking that she was going to end up having like a other power. Like that was a joke. And she's always thought it was her power. But the reason they chose her is because of her secret 5th power, which I guess wasn't true. Unless you want it to be like, literal superpower trust or optimism or something.
Yeah, I think, and I would go so far as to say that is it.
That's
like,
sure. That's fine.
Because Sisu doesn't even see herself as like the most powerful among them. If anything, she even makes a comment that says like she was like the least powerful.
Right.
I'm not like the best dragon.
What I would like to believe is that the other 4, what they saw in her was like, you are the optimism in us.
Right.
Take this and go. And that's sort of what does it. But the sort of interesting thing is that when they do that, it returns all of the people who have been turned to stone, but not the dragons.
Right.
But then when the people do it, it returns all of the people and the dragons.
Yes.
So why is that?
Well, I had that same question, and I think maybe they sort of say something in the intro that like the dragons came together and it brought all the people back, but it didn't bring us together. Like it divided us.
Oh, that's true.
So
because the gem showed up, and that's sort of like, I think Raya makes a comment where she's like, it should have brought us together, but instead it's what divided us.
Right.
Because everybody wanted a piece of, or quite literally the gem itself.
Right. So this is like more now all the people are in fact, it's like the world is returning to its naturally balanced state,
which is,
I guess,
Kumandra. Right. Which I wonder if that
river
means
that looks like the dragon.
Yes.
I loved the way the dragon looked though in the river. That was a cool choice.
It was exceptionally cool.
Yeah.
I would like to live there. Yeah, on the banks of that lake river.
Right.
Yeah, that would be extremely cool. I wonder if Kumandra somehow means unity or peace or
I don't know.
Something like that. It's got to have some type of
there's definitely some meaning behind that.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's cool. Okay, so this isn't really related, but can I complain about like just one other thing? Because there was one other thing that I felt like really needled me.
Let's go.
It was the sword.
The sword?
The sword itself. Raya has this sword that like, it was her father's sword, which is cool.
Yeah. It had that like wavy thing and it could do the whip.
Right.
More Indiana Jonesing over there.
Yes, like so it's got like these like unique abilities, unique characteristics. It's honestly like to have a clever take on a sword, like it's it's one of like the oldest weapons there are.
Yeah.
So like on that note, it's like, well done. Like
Yeah.
like a unique sword. That's pretty cool.
Do swords like that exist where you can like, I don't know, I assume you need some sort of like retractable button on the blade.
Right, I don't know.
I don't know.
A really good spring.
Really feels unreliable and extremely dangerous.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Let me just fling about my shards of sharpened metal.
Yeah.
But like the sword itself is so cool looking.
Right.
And it's like a really iconic, unique, neat sword that effectively has no history or added meaning at all other than just being this like token of her father's, which I was even trying to remember. Does she have it when she falls in the water, or did she almost definitely have to go back and get it?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, that's not important.
Okay.
But the other thing about the sword though is that like there are these big moments that you have. It's used like in a reflective sense.
Like a mirror.
Like a mirror.
Yeah.
Like more than one time. And even that has almost nothing to do with anything else in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there was like very Mulan-esque vibes from
Yeah.
the like reflections in the sword. But maybe if we dig deeper, there is some like noticeable theme going on there. But to me, it wasn't obvious in the way like Mulan, it was, where,
Right.
I mean, there's a whole song called Reflection.
Yeah.
And, you know, the logo is her two different reflections. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
It's very, 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 very prominent in Mulan.
Yeah.
And so I think that was just something that to me, I was kind of like, it felt like a really big set piece that really had absolutely no payoff whatsoever, other than just kind of paying homage to her father.
Yeah. I don't know necessarily if there was more to it than that. Although speaking of Mulan, that brings it back to like the Disney Plus conversation.
Yes, it does.
Like you have this is only the second time Disney has done the premiere access thing.
Right, where you pay $30.
$30 to get it. And the argument everyone always gives is like, if you were taking a family of 4 to the movies, you would easily spend more than $30.
Right. So I think like it's hard to step outside of like quarantine brain and go back to that thought where like the thought of going and entertaining your entire family for a Friday night for $30 might be considered like an expected amount that you might spend. Like going to the movies with your family is like not a new idea in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Not that I'm saying that it's cheap to go to the movies, because it certainly never feels like it is.
Not anymore.
But still, you're watching what was intended to be a
theatrical release.
A theatrical release at home. And so you have that like fine line that you're walking of, is $30 a lot? Like, because I just watched it, me and Alice. Where, you know, like
I just watched it, me and Beth.
Right. So like that would be obviously a fairly expensive, you know, per ticket price if you were going to the theaters for just 2 people. So the argument doesn't necessarily work in our house.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, I guess my question to you, because you started off the review by saying that it was worth it. I started off the review by saying it wasn't worth it. Have I swayed you at all?
Well, maybe a little, yes.
Okay.
I think a little. I think you've brought me more to your level. Although, have I swayed you at all?
No.
No. Like, no, still where I'm at.
Still where I'm at. Yeah. No, I think I'm still there. Where, I'm not. And I'm not sure about the choice to do it. The other thing too is that you're coming off of WandaVision and even releasing it the same day as the finale of WandaVision.
It's so, I do not know what is going on over there at Disney Plus, because to me, the really, really obvious thing to do, like, I don't know why Raya came out last Friday on the same day as the finale of WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it makes way more sense for it to come out this Friday, like, in between WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
Like, maybe they were thinking so many people will be on the app for the finale that they'll see Raya.
Oh, sure,
like,
I can see that.
Maybe there's that. But to me, it's like, you have now gotten people, like, just used to looking forward to something on Friday, and they're going to have a week gap. That could have been the week.
That's exactly the way I see it.
Yeah.
Is that like if you've had 8 weeks in a row where you've been highly anticipating something every single Friday from Disney Plus, and we know that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is starting 2 weeks from that Friday,
right?
Feel the middle Friday.
Yes. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Especially because the final episode of WandaVision is not like short. It's like the longest one.
And it's the finale. Yeah. It's like it was such a highly anticipated thing. So all I could say is that maybe it wouldn't have been easy to predict the popularity of WandaVision, But
that's selling yourself. That's not believing in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, Disney. Jeez,
Exactly.
watch your own movies.
seriously.
Yeah, I don't know why they released it on the same day when the next Friday feels so obvious to me.
Yeah.
But so I don't know, Disney. If you want, tips or tricks to optimize your platform,
You just let us
can
know.
call us. We'll be happy to consult with you. You're welcome
So-
in advance.
That being said, though, like kind of going back to Mulan, Mulan wasn't necessarily the most positively received movie.
Yeah, I don't think people loved it.
Yeah. That being said, I know the scores on Rotten Tomato for Raya and the Last Dragon. Would you like to hear those before we give our numbers, or would you like to give our numbers
No,
first?
I want to give mine unimpeded by outside.
Okay. You go
Okay.
first. You go first.
Well, I'm gonna give it. Maybe you drop me a point or so, but I'm gonna give it a 74.
Oh man.
Yeah, am I close? Are you the same?
Super close. The number I've had in my head all morning was 72.
Oh, so we're very close.
We're like right on the same.
Okay, so it's interesting that I came in saying, yes, you should watch it, and you're saying no. So 73 is apparently our number of like, this is the line.
Right, yeah.
If it's better than 73, watch it.
Worth it. No, that's so funny. That is so funny. But that being said, we are currently, I would say, a little more harsh on it than critics that are out there. So
okay.
the current audience review on Rotten Tomatoes is an 84%.
Solid.
As of recording this video, and the current critic review is certified fresh at 95%.
Oh, critics are ahead.
Critics are way ahead.
That is interesting to me. It almost seems like, cause like for an animated Disney movie, being under the 90s on the audience side feels like kind of a complete failure. No, I'm just kidding. But like, when you think of like almost every Pixar movie comes out at above 90.
Yeah,
Or like
yeah.
Moana, I'm sure is above 90. It has to be.
I have to imagine.
Yeah.
I would rank Moana firmly ahead of Raya in my rankings.
I would probably go with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm sure our own scores on this channel reflected that as well.
Yes. I would have to imagine.
Yeah.
I love Moana. So anyway, guys, I am extremely curious what your thoughts are leaving this movie. I know that we definitely had like some gripes about it. I come back to the same thing over and over and over again, is that I love the theme of
Yes.
the movie. And I think that if I were to like really leave you with anything, it would be this thought that like the theme of the movie is exactly how I feel personally, like right now anyway.
Right. Like you wanted a movie with this messaging to exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think that through pacing, you had like some sort of underdeveloped characters, and I think that you had like some moments that could have just had a bit more depth to them. Like I never felt heartbroken, heartfelt. Like I was never so emotionally drawn in that I was really, really like in it for that specific moment. So that's really like where my criticism comes from, but like also my underlying belief is I like the idea of building bridges towards other beliefs instead of building walls against them.
Yes. Optimism defeats cynicism.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. So guys, let us know what your thoughts are in the towel section down below. Did you rent it? Did you find a way to watch it? What are your thoughts? Where would you rank it on a scale of 100? We want to hear just really anything you've got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you haven't already. If you want to see our Mulan review, you can check that out right here. If you want to subscribe because you're not subscribed yet, you can do that by clicking right here. But until next time, bye!